This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Phoenix Rising Radio. Now is the time to lift your mind higher. Now is the time to rise above. I am your host, Phoenix, and welcome to tonight's broadcast. Yeah, those children's only a shot away. Hope you guys are doing well. This is Phoenix. This is Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, 7/11. 7/11 it be today. Hope you guys are doing well. And last week we broadcast. Reason for that here in North America, the United States, primarily, not primarily exactly, was Independence Day, and a lot of people were out doing other things, so we didn't do that. And for technical reasons and some changes, and speaking of technical reasons, we didn't have a show on Thursday. It was a rebroadcast then also. And like I said, some technical reasons. So if you're hearing a little background noise or anything, yeah, some technical changes. Anyway, we're being joined this evening in the studio live co-hosting from the Indian Nation. It's Ney Say. Ney Say, how's it going, brother?
It is going well, and may I wish you a happy Independence Day, or as some of the sheeple call it, the 4th of July. Hope you had a good, blessed day.
Oh, we did. It was a wonderful day for me. Earlier today, I spoke to you. You were at the state. Was it a state fair or a county fair you went to?
It was the Red River Valley Fair. If you've heard of the Red River Valley, where periodically every spring, sometimes it's underwater up here in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Luckily enough, we haven't had much flooding at all. Ironically in itself, you know, the Native Americans were like, don't build a city there. It floods sometimes. And of course, these silly white guys were like, oh, don't worry about it. We know what to do. And it would flood. But yeah, they have their annual fair, you know, and I had the opportunity to go there. And so I brought my kids there to the Midway. And yeah, remember when it was absolutely unpolitical correct at Midways, where they had these so-called freak shows?
Oh, yeah, man. The freak shows when I was a kid, the freak shows, and our favorite when I was a young boy was the girly shows. Remember the girly shows? Yeah. The traveling carnivals and festivals, they would have like a girly show. I don't know what they actually called the exotic show, whatever. They would have
right
up there, and you'd see all these families walking by, and the mother like covering the eyes of the kids, and they would go by. Oh yeah, politically incorrect, definitely fun all the way, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, well, we got to go to the midway, and I have my one child that is absolutely fearless, that wanted to go on every single ride, but unfortunately she wasn't at the right height. And my older daughter, that's much more cautious, was like, do they check the safety measures on these things? And I'm like, that's half of the excitement of not knowing if this rickety old ride is going to actually get you through the end.
Oh my God, true. I mean, if people saw how those things were taken apart and put on trucks and driven to another place and haphazardly put back together, oh my gosh, there's no inspection of those things. And yeah, every few years there's a tragic accident at one of those. But again, it's human nature, and it gives people a thrill. It used to be, I mean, back in the day when there wasn't a lot of excitement going on, when you had the traveling fairs, carnivals, etc., that would come into small burgs, towns, remote areas, man, that was a big deal. I mean, people anticipated it. It was a boon to the economy. People loved it. It was a huge social thing that happened. The small burg where we're located here, they do the same thing, and it's been ongoing for a long time. It started with horse racing back in the early 1800s, I believe. And they were racing horses and stuff. And, these community fairs where people would come together and show off their livestock. And that's what they began, livestock shows and the bake contest and all that. It's Americana all the way. And it's more than Americana. These are things that came from Europe. These are European customs. And even in the Native American nations, you guys did the same thing. You were just telling us about the powwow you guys had. That's the fair, man. That was the county fair or the state fair for the Native Americans, was your powwow.
Right. It was the opportunity for people to get together and socialize, to really socialize, not on Facebook, because that is the most unsocial network that I think I've had the missed opportunity of being involved with. Mm-hmm. And yes, I am guilty. I wish I could remember where the statistic came from, but I was reading the statistic that every post that you put on Facebook is on an average 15 minutes of your life that's been wasted. So on the average, because sometimes people will scroll through the walls and scroll through comments and like things and that and the other thing before they ever post, So on an average. So imagine these people that are posting 40, 50 times a day. And I understand, where we are in our aspect with Phoenix Rising, where it does help us to get the word out and promote and to socialize, so it's that double-edged sword that we as human beings get caught up on. Is it easier or is it harder? Because thank God for that remote, because it was an easy 20 pounds I gained with the remote.
Dude, let me tell you, what you just said about Facebook, I know is 100% true, but let me tell you, and people who have friended me on Facebook, on Phoenix Rising, they know this to be true. Dude, I don't socialize. I have a Facebook thing. The most time I spend on Facebook is checking to make sure something that I shared on Facebook got there. I share news articles and stuff. And it is a rare thing when people send me a message that I even see them or respond to them. And to everyone, I'm not being rude to you. If you've ever sent me a message or something and I never responded, I'm not being rude. It's not that I don't want to talk to you. I just don't do that. I take control of that, and here's the thing with technology, Ney Say, we can control it as we will, and we don't have to become totally enslaved to it and addicted. It can be a tool, and we can use that. But, going back to the whole county fair thing, the powwow thing and socializing, that is so true. The old fairs where people used to go to, the county fairs, there's a lot of this going on. I know people are listening to me right now. They've been to one of these already this year, or they're getting ready to go to one, or one's coming up. The county fairs is a big thing. And I believe people should support those. And they used to be much more, I don't know, how do you say this, more accepting and different. A lot of the county fairs used to have preachers. And some of the fairs, well, most of the fairs around where I'm at, because I'm in a very like rural area, Ney Say, a lot of horse and buggies with the Amish and all that. A lot of the county fairs here, most of them, Sunday morning, they have church service and all of that. A lot of them have the dances, like the square dances. They do all that. And let me tell you guys, it's a funny story. When I was a young person, when I was like a teenager, this is a true story. They used to have like a place where preachers would preach at the county fairs, carnivals. And there was this preacher, and he would all of them had him. And you could either stop and listen, or you could walk by, or whatever. And they had the girly tent, the freak show, and then they had like the preachers and all your things in the midway. But this guy was like preaching, and this guy was there. There was a young guy there, and he had a couple girls with him. And my friend was there when this happened. He said this guy was drunk. He'd been all drunked up, and they went to the carnival or the fair, and he was mocking the preacher, and the preacher stopped. After this guy kept mocking him, and saying, "Oh, it's all BS. Oh, that's this," and he said, "Young man, why would you say that?" He stopped in front of everybody. Said, "Young man, why would you say that the Word of God is BS?" He said, "I'll tell you what. If you can prove one thing in that book is true, I'll go to church every Sunday for the rest of my life." He goes, "Okay, come right up." This guy came up on this stage. This is a true story, dude. I'm not kidding you. This preacher reached out and grabbed him by the nose with his knuckles and started twisting. And the guy started screaming, went down to his knees. And the preacher finally stopped. And the guy was like bleeding out of his nose and screaming, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?" And the preacher, and he had a little microphone on. He opened the Bible up to Proverbs or wherever the scripture was. He said, "And the wringing of the nose will bringeth forth blood." He goes, "There you go." Dude, true story. And the preacher wasn't sued. The preacher didn't go to jail. They didn't call a SWAT team. And it's just a crazy, amazing story. But, talking about Americana, and it goes beyond Americana. This goes back to Europe. And these are cultural things that the Europeans, Ireland, Scotland, all cultures would have these gatherings where they get together and share their crafts, who's the best. They would contest, shearing contest. We have one around here at some of the fairs. They call them sheep to sweater. And what it is, it's usually a group of women, and they're timed on this and judged. They will have a sheep or two, and they will shear them. And from the time the shearing starts, what they do is they take the wool, they process the wool, they card the wool, they spin the wool, then they weave the wool into a sweater. And,
nice.
And it's all timed, and it takes like a couple days to do this. It's called sheep to sweater. And then what they do is judge them on the time, and then they also have the quality of the sweater. And sometimes somebody is a little bit over on the time, but the sweater is so fine, that they win. So, but it's kind of a cool thing. And you'd be shocked. Like how many contestants they'll have. They'll be like 8 teams of sheep to sweater. Like, where do these people live, man? What's going on here? But
well, it's so incredible that one of these social outlets is the whole competition, which is a very healthy thing. Being competitive is a very useful thing. However, how people act during that competition can be discussed, whether it's positive or negative. And now with these schools where they're like, everybody needs a badge just for participating. We shouldn't have these kids compete against each other. And to me, I just get upset because it gives your children a little bit of a push, so not only do they compete against others, but then they start competing against themselves, because that's what I tell my children. I said, look, did you do better than the last time? That's where you want to compete, and if you do better than a bunch of people, then be proud of yourself. But don't rub it in people's faces. Don't be like the sore loser or the what is it called for the winner? Be a gracious winner. Don't rub it in people's face, and in that aspect of things. But yeah, Americana, where and what and why.
Yeah, that whole thing about competitivism, I've seen that. The fact that they have tried to take that away from kids is a great disservice to our nation and to those children, because I tell you what, the basic reality of life begins on competition, because the spermatozoid that's the fastest, the strongest, and gets there quickest is the winner. And that's
right.
Life starts off. So life starts off as a competition. I don't care what you say. You can't change that, and you can't socially, adjust that. It's competitive. Only the strong survive. But see, what we have to do is we have to teach our children what is truly strength. What is strength? Is strength being able, who's the strongest person? Is it somebody who's able to physically overcome the other person more than the other? In some terms, maybe, but many terms, the one who overcomes is the smart one, is the wise one, the one with love and understanding in his heart that can actually outdo the one that can physically outdo the other. So, what is true strength and what is true, winning? Anyway, that's a big topic. We'll go into a lot of things. Oh man, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. Tell you what,
we're going to go into news. Can I first? How much time do we got before the break?
We got like 10 minutes. Yeah. Say what?
Oh, good. Come
on, man.
All right. I just want to do this quick little song. Okay, and you guys will know the title of the song real quick. I told you so. All right, let's talk about Trump.
Okay, let's talk about Trump.
and the latest with the emails. Have you heard that one?
Oh, I've read them. I've checked them out. And now, see, here's the thing about all that. There are, both sides are spinning it in both ways. Now, at the break here, you heard the news, how they were structuring it and everything. So this is being interpreted and spun by both sides, but the truth is somewhere in the middle. So please go ahead.
Well, see, and where I want to say is that I told you so, is that, we've discussed this long ago, that when people were like, who's going to win, who's going to win? And my prediction was whatever is the best movie of the week scenario, that is how it's going to go. Because I believe politics is nothing but distraction. And this is nothing but more distraction. And it's like they keep upping the bar on the distraction.
Oh, I agree 100%. And it's political theatrics. I talk about political theatrics all the time, they say. You know that. And the real news is, we follow something over on Going Global, East Meets West, and just personally, we look at things. And I tell you what's really going on in the world and what is going on when you listen to the U.S. press, oh, man, totally two different things. I mean, it's night and day, and it's done for a reason. It is theatrics, and people have to remember some basic facts here. And this kind of like blows people's minds, and they really don't want to deal with it. Donald Trump was a Democrat. Donald Trump was a Democrat for years, for decades, all of his life, I guess. And he became a Republican to run for president. And he used to donate to the Democratic Party. He donated to Clinton's, but he did donate to the Republicans also. Now, I'm not saying he's like a closet Democrat. I think he's rogue. I think he is a faction of the elite that's basically going against the cabal. We have a battle going on right now. We have a cabal battle. You have the old school cabal that's basically being overtaken by a very wealthy elite person who had gained some alliances. And I believe there's a lot of truth in the drain the swamp thing, because, I mean, there's some very, very bad things coming out about people. I mean, really. John McCain, I don't know if you saw, he's very anti-Trump, and he is now in big trouble, baby. Lawsuits have come out against John McCain in England, I believe, and in the U.S. For the false narrative that came out with the fake dossier about Trump. So McCain's under the microscope now. So it's getting kind of crazy up there.
Well, we all can agree that the second Gulf War was totally fabricated and based on a lie. And yet, has anything happened to any of those politicians that should be, well, I think some of them probably should have had their necks stretched under treason laws. But yeah, none of them have been incarcerated. You know, the heavy hitters, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld.
Right. There's a reason for that. There's a theory behind that. And I was talking to my friend out in California the other day. He's a gold broker and all this. And we talk every day, sometimes a couple times a day. And he's got a lot of connections all over the world. He's a very smart guy when it comes to finances and all this. And he has a theory on that about why they're not going to go after some of the big people. And his theory is that they have stolen basically so many billions, if not trillions of dollars. These guys have actually formed private armies. And if they were to go after these guys will like start World War III or start a global revolution. And there may be threats against it. Now, a lot of people are saying, and there's a lot of evidence that Cheney was involved with the whole 9/11 thing, and that the Pentagon was not hit by an aircraft, it was hit by a cruise missile. And the question is, where'd that cruise missile come from? Now, there's a high degree of probability that people like Cheney or Bush, they actually have a private army. They may have their own submarines, dude, with cruise missile capabilities and all this, because they could do that. They could do that. And his theory is that they're not going to go after these big heavy hitters in the cabal, because they have probably threatened them that they will start like a global war, kind of like Dr. Evil or something. And I'm not kidding you. Now look at George Bush. George Bush, the Bush family down in Paraguay, and Paraguay is a dictatorial nightmare down there. Like, I mean, really heavy militant country. And they have, I forget how big the place is, like a million
200,000. 200,000 squared acres.
There you go.
Is what the Bush family purchased.
Yeah, dude, that is like their own country. And the security they have to have down there. Think about all the billions and billions of dollars that the Bush cabal and the Clinton cabal. I'm sure the Clintons have their own compound down there in the middle of Paraguay, too. So basically what we have are some elites that control enough assets that they have created their own private armies. If you have people like, the director of Blackwater, who set that whole private thing up, with government money on his own, imagine what someone like Cheney or Bush could do with all their hidden money.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this is, I learned a long time ago when I first got involved with, in 1995 was the first time I listened to William Cooper give his lecture on his book, Be Hailed a Pale Horse, before it was even in book form. And from that moment on is when I really started looking through the rabbit hole. And I learned from a very early stage about how everything in politics is never by accident. And they said, if you really want to look at the dirty people, look at retired DEA agents, because they're really tightly tied in with the CIA. And I know this from absolute truth, from seeing pictures of a friend's dad who was in front of these huge trucks, like the 6-axle trucks that have the big open back ends, and tar heroin packaged and up 20, 30 feet on the back of these trucks. And a bunch of these CIA or DEA and CIA guys are just standing in front of these trucks with big old smiles on their face. Like, look at what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Under the guise of operations, a lot of weird stuff is happening. People don't realize. People really don't realize. And they undercut one another. They cut throats. But yeah, I knew a DEA agent, and I worked with him, and a CIA guy and a ATF guy. And I tell you what, no, I'm not going to tell you what. I'm not going to say anything. But what you just said's true. And it's people don't realize the way things really are. You know, we've talked about it before, the opium fields of Afghanistan. Big question. Why are they still there? We've been there for years. We got thousands of troops there. We spent billions of dollars. Well, we can't afford some gasoline to set these things on fire. We can't afford to cut them down. It's the largest crop of opium producing poppies ever in the history of Afghanistan, growing there right now under our tutelage.
And if you go back and you look at the last five presidents, within 200 days of them becoming in office, they have all started some type of bombing campaign in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And as we've discussed before, this is this same old game that where the drug lords of the area, you know, they're like, okay, now they got to play ball with us. And if they're not willing to play ball with us, then we just go in there, carpet bomb all the fields. We let them fight amongst each other and see which guy stands up on top at the end of it. And then we deal with him.
Yep.
And this is a common game that's been played way back in China in the opium trade.
Yeah, the opium wars in the Golden Triangle in Vietnam. Yeah, I knew a guy that'd been in Vietnam, sergeant, and he like confessed to me. He goes, I opened up body bags that were filled with heroin. I'm like, oh, okay. And he tried to
right next to the bodies.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sure.
we're rolling right here, man. Anyway, we will get to the news and other things. Don't go away, everyone. We'll be
Real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. The Truth Frequency Radio.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
And we are back. Before the break, talking about a lot of crazy stuff going on all over the world, geopolitical things we're going to get into. You know, I wanted to say before I forget about it to everyone, and to you, Ney Say, Laura Walker of the Oracle Report, she had been back, and she did a couple special reports. You can go over to the oraclereport.com and find those. And she gave a shout out about our program that you and I did that she was very impressed with, and she very much, Ney Say, so I just wanted to share that with you. So.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that. I hope we do the audience justice, so that validates us, you know, babbling on in Babylon.
Battling on in Babylon. Oh man, what so true. Babylon. This is the whole world is turned into Babylon. It's quite a mess all over. You know, we're talking about cruise missiles into the Pentagon, all these things. But again, that's why my friend thinks, I agree with him, why some of these big people won't be taken down, because they could literally lay governments to waste with the armaments they have. Really, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these people, like the Bushes and Cheney and some of these cabal groups, have nuclear weapons. I mean, they are literally the embodiment and reality of Dr. Evil.
Well, you know, the one thing that has never been addressed, I don't know if you well, I'm sure you recall this, but from the first Gulf War, remember where allegedly there was 100 suitcase nukes that went missing?
Oh, yeah. That was from the fall of the former Soviet Union. What it was they had these suitcase nuclear devices, and now I can't say anything, and I won't say anything, but to our listening audience, I think that Russia was the only country who had that size device. And if you think nuclear suitcase device, just it doesn't have to be a suitcase. It can be anything the size of a suitcase. So use your mind, use your head, use your imagination. I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling people to think. But anyway, yeah, those devices, there was a lot of debunking on that. They say, they're like, oh, they have to be maintained, they have to be this, they have to be that. Yeah, right. Okay, that's true. That could be true, but they're still gone. They're still out there, and occasionally people will make reference. I'm not a big television person, but there was a TV series. My friend Bama, he watched the whole thing, him and his wife, on Netflix, I guess it was. And no, that's not a plug for Netflix. But Jericho, it was called, and it had to do with a bomb bombing
Yes.
U.S. cities that was done intentionally to bring about some desired effect.
Well, this is one of the things that people don't realize, as we were talking earlier about technology and technology right now, where they could literally technologically put a dome over us, like the Stephen King book, and they could put a quarantine around us, and they can claim that, look, you're the only surviving city in the United States. The rest of the country has been blown to bits, and they could be totally lying to us. We wouldn't know. They could easily create some kind of false flag to that extreme.
Yeah, is that what was that the scenario of Jericho? Is that what they did?
Well, that was kind of, well, no, they actually, nuclear devices were released. I think it was 6 of them were released throughout the United States. And so all of these towns out in the middle rural areas were trying to survive on their own. And then they had like rogue military personnel going through where they were basically like, screw this, we're all for ourselves. And you'd have whole military companies coming through a town and trying to take it over.
Wow.
And this is okay. This is a conversation that I had with some of my female friends where we talk about they'll bring up like women in the Middle East and their burqas. And I said, okay, think about the Middle East. It's nothing but desert. And if you have not been there, the desert dust and sand gets everywhere. Everywhere. And so why would you not, as a woman, being the most honorable part of the species, why would you not want them protected to reduce sand getting everywhere? And this has just been the outfit for thousands of years in the desert because they didn't like sand to get everywhere unless they were inside their homes.
Are you trying to say the women wore burqas so they wouldn't get sand in their... I'm not going to say it.
Well, yeah, talk to any woman that has spent any time on the beach in a bikini or whatever and tell me how comfortable is it at the end of the day of being on the beach? Like literally and honestly, how comfortable it is. And so we have these women that are like, let us be modest. Let us show what we got. And I'm saying show what you got. Flaunt it as much as you want. Because when this proverbial fan gets struck, see how quick you are to cover that body up. Because no one besides children and women go through the absolute horrendousness of war. Yeah. And when all of a sudden it is lawlessness and that guy has no police officer who's all creeping on you, see what happens in those situations, lady. So go ahead, flaunt yourself, but don't be surprised. And I'm not saying it's right. No way should any man, woman, or child invade another individual's personal space without consent. Mm-hmm.
Realities of breakdown in society. I've got a different theory on the burqa thing. I don't believe it was prevent sand. I actually believe if you go back to the Bible and the ancient texts, Hebrew texts, Sumerian texts, they talk about the Nephilim. They talk about the fallen ones, and you had the Anunnaki who came down, who were allegedly the fallen ones, the Watchers, the demons, the angels cast from heaven, and they looked upon the earth and they found the women of the earth desirable. And from what scriptures say in the ancient writings, they basically took women, and they were very lusty, and they would take women, rape women, and the offspring of those raped women would be the Nephilim. So the
Right.
Nephilim, which were genetic anomaly and grew into giants, came as a result of the Anunnaki raping the women. And there's talk about it in the time pre-Diluvian thing with Noah and all this, how this was a big problem. And I think that the burqa possibly, now who knows, but I think it possibly comes from ancient historical events where women were so fearful that these Anunnaki would see them and get lustful and rape them because they just took who they wanted. And I think it was to prevent rape by the Anunnaki.
Well, and if you do also look at the men's outfit of the desert, it's very similar to a burqa, but it's not the same because the men would, the men would fasten up between their legs so they could ride their camels or their horses. But the other thing with what you were saying, I have a few friends that are Muslim, and they've presented me with a Quran, and one of my friends said it to me where it really stuck in my head. He said, to look at a woman once is to honor her beauty. To look twice is to start lusting.
Interesting. Very interesting point.
And it's sad because, when my 13-year-old daughter, when the style now is for my 13-year-old daughter to show her midriff, and you can barely find any clothes now that go to the child's belly button, this is sickening. Because there's no reason why a 13-year-old needs to show her midriff. And maybe I'm just a little bit old-fashioned, but it's like, leave a little bit to the imagination instead of letting Disney capture your imagination.
Oh, yeah. So it's true. Yeah, and it can't be that comfortable. I mean, seriously. The stress that it puts on women when that is the fashion, to wear skin-tight pants, like the yoga pants and like the midriff shirts and all that. It's got to be a lot of pressure on them because of their physical, not everybody's the same. Not everybody's an airbrush person. And that's not where real beauty is. Anyway, they have totally distorted things to the point that it's almost torturous for young people. Years ago, I actually had a conversation with somebody. He was a young guy, and he had been paid, and he was broke. And he was complaining about being broke, and I'm like, well, you just got paid. Yeah, well, I had to buy this, and this. And he was constantly wearing, like, brand new, like, designer stuff. And I said, like, how much are those shoes? He told me, and like, how much are the jeans? Oh, these are these. And the outfit this kid was wearing, and this was like 20 years ago, it was like $175. And I'm talking about the goofy hat, and I'm like, that's why you're broke. Why do you buy these things? And I had knew the kid. I said, you used to wear, like a beat up ball cap, a flannel shirt, and jeans with a hole in the knee when you're out having fun. What happened? He said, you can't do that. And he almost broke down in tears because if you go to the mall or something, if you're not wearing this and that and this, people make fun of you. He said other kids make fun of you and you get harassed. And so it was peer pressure. And I think that psychological peer pressure came from television and advertising. I know it did, from shows where kids felt they had to be a certain way or they wouldn't be accepted. And that psychological pressure has increased. And it all has to do, Ney Say, with the bottom lines of corporations. They don't give a
Absolutely.
Kids, they don't give a crap about your health. They want big profits. They want their stock to go up. They want to be able to buy that brand new Tesla they want to buy, or what, they're looking at a new house out on Long Island or somewhere, in the Hamptons. That's what it's all about. and they do not care about people's emotions or anything else, as long as it doesn't get to the point where it affects their bottom line.
Right. Well, lately I love still listening to movies, and now that they have audio description, it's a little bit more enjoyable. And it's ironic when I go see a movie, or if I go listen to a movie with my kids or friends, and I'll hear the dialogue. As soon as I hear the dialogue, I'll ask whoever's with me to look for any kind of symbolism or iconography in the scene. And usually 9 times out of 10, it's right there and it matches the dialogue. And so
you should have never told me that. If we're ever together watching a movie and you're like, Phoenix, well, I will be messing with you so bad. Yeah.
Right?
The mountain just blew up. Oh my God.
Right. But we just went and listened to the Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm losing my man crush for Johnny Depp, because I'm like, really, Johnny? You had to do another one? But I think the powers that shouldn't be were like, yes, you have to do a 7, because it's all about the numbers. And if you look at the underlying story of the Pirates of the Caribbean series of movies, I believe it really tells us a hint of the truth of, as I've talked about, the Knights Templar, when they were all rounded up in 1307, that they half of the fleet went to the Caribbeans and started the whole pirateers. And if you follow this progression in these movies, you can see this storyline between it, and it's weaving in and out, and they're actually naming true trading companies that were like with British and the colonists and Spain. And it's all about the gold. And it made me think about that when you talked about the gold being stolen by one country to another country. Spoiler alert, there's a scene in there where they make reference to these gold standards and being stolen and brought from one place to another, and that these corporations or these cities, whichever way you want to call them, have the most gold. But that being said, we also went and saw Wonder Woman. And in this Wonder Woman movie, it's the same kind of the whole thing of the Wonder Woman, the Amazon story, but it was super hyper sexualized, and I couldn't even see it. But just from the dialogue, the kind of little secret little ribbings about the sexualization of Wonder Woman, and apparently throughout the whole movie she's in high heels, and this goes back to the social standing of our children, where I believe that this is all by design, and one of the last remaining things that we are just holding on by a thread in America is the family unit structure. But it is slowly being unraveled, because our children are not only having enough challenges growing up in the school systems that have been deliberately dumbing down, according to Charlotte and her deliberate dumbing down of America, but also with the social norms and the construct of, you need to have these clothes on, you have to fit this style, you have to be along with this clique. And then they throw in the sexualization in the middle school of, not only should I be with what boy or what girl, but who am I? Am I really a girl in a man's body? And this is literally, I believe, destroying the family unit, because it's really hard as a parent nowadays to understand this new additive to this sexualization of our children.
Oh yeah, it's gotten to the point that they're putting pressure on conventional families that, if you resist this, there's something wrong with you. And they actually teach the kids, if your parents don't understand this, there's something wrong with them. They're from the old racist way, not racist, but the old old way of thinking, that they're not smart enough or whatever. But I tell you what, it's a shame. when boys can't be boys and girls can't be girls. I mean, we're different. We are different, and that's just the way it is, and that's a good thing. You know, I like girls, and I hope girls stay.
I mean,
girls.
I'm fine. I'm actually fine either way. And I don't know if we've shared this before, Phoenix, but I was a cosmetologist, a trained cosmetologist for 8 years. You know, before I got sick enough that I couldn't do work behind the chair. And in that experience of being a cosmetologist, I had a lot of friends that were homosexual. My uncle actually died of AIDS in the mid 80s. And so I knew about AIDS back then and everything like that. And I was wrapped up into that hypersexualized fashion world where I was doing runway shows and hair shows and modeling shows. And at one point I just had to walk away from it because it was so disgusting. And it wasn't disgusting because of the people, because I actually love the people, but the actions of the people. Like I've said many times, I won't judge you because you are a miracle. You are the only Phoenix there is. So that individuality and uniqueness of you is an absolute miracle. So I'm not going to judge that, but you're darn tootin', I'm going to judge your actions. And the actions of people in this world of modeling and hairstylists was just too vain for me. So I had to step away. You know, but this is what is happening with our children, where they're having this identity crisis that I do believe is on purpose. It's happening in the movies, it's happening in the media, and I do believe it is to break down the structure and the dynamics between the parents and teacher. And to speak another thing about these poor kids, I just came across a story that they're refusing to let children have sunblock in school.
Okay, why?
I haven't been able to find any reason. But they're claiming that you cannot have sunblock in school unless it's prescribed by a physician.
Okay.
And it's like, where has the common sense gone?
You know where that's coming from? Dude, I'll tell you where that's coming from. It's because people are too white. It's to go against whiteness. There's a movement out there that believe that people who are anti black, if you will, or anti-culture or white privileged people, they use sunblock so they will be very, very white. So people who are very whited out and use heavy sunblock, it's considered a form of racism now.
Oh my God, is this the attack against the emo world?
God, emos are in bad shape. Well, actually, no, because you know how emos are, but it makes no sense.
You've heard of emos, right?
Oh, I know what an emo is, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I know I'm very familiar with that. But
well, we were called Darksiders back in the day. We weren't called emos or goth. We were called Darksiders when we used to listen to Susie and the Banshee and The Cure and, you know, stuff like that. I remember that 80s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worn a skirt more than once or twice.
More to the new church. All that.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I was a music guy. I've been. Right. I was in music after I left the military. I did the music thing, and so I'm very familiar with goth.
Well, you can easily go online and find my my pictures of Ney Say when I was walking wearing a skirt, because and especially when I found out how much the women loved me wearing a skirt, you bet I had no problem wearing it again.
Dude, you want me to be blind too? Like, must remove eyes. Oh, God, I can't believe that, dude.
But I was a pretty boy Floyd, you know, and you know, before I was sick, and this is, excuse me, this is all ego, you know, but I was a lead singer in a band. I had a motorcycle. I called it my concrete pony. You know, I had some groupies. I had a really unique look to myself. You know, was making money in a hair salon and on top of the world. You know, I was following the fashion of the day. You know, I was goose stepping along, and fashion does kill, especially in the winter where women are are willing to sacrifice their bodies against the cold instead of putting some clothes on in the winter.
Well, yeah, you're up near Fargo too, and that's quite,
Right.
yeah, crazy, amazing.
But here's my question to you, Phoenix. If you were given the opportunity, without knowing what you know now, just given the choice to go back and be back in middle school, would you do it? In today's world.
In today's world, to be in middle school right now?
Right now.
In today's world, oh, heck no. Oh, my God, no. Oh, my God, no. I mean, when we were in school, we all carried knives. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard the story when I was in high school. Two of my friends, it was in the morning before class started. Two of my friends walked in. One had a rifle, one had a shotgun. And they're like walking by and, okay, what's up? Didn't say anything to them. And the principal walked by him and goes, morning. They're like, good morning. And he goes, hey, wait a minute. And they're like, yes, sir. And they turn around. He goes, why do you boys have those guns? Like, oh, we're going hunting after school. He goes, where are you going hunting? They said Wilson's Woods behind the school. There's squirrels in there. And the principal said, there's squirrels in there? And they said, oh, yeah, a lot of them. He goes, okay. He goes, I want those guns in your lockers, and I don't want to see them till school's out. They're like, yes, sir. And that was it. Dude, that's how I grew up. So, no, I don't want to go back. There were no SWAT teams and no one screaming, running. It was just like, hello, we're all normal.
Well, this goes back to my claim of things being by design, and sure, it's the romanticism of it and everything like that, but where is the whole thing of love is all you need, and why can't we just get it? Where is that? Is it really social conditioning? Is it we as human beings are that fallible?
Yeah, we are. What it is, it's just truly.
Yes.
It's a battle of good between, you asked, I was going to tell you, battle between good and evil. It really is. And there's something higher here. There's a higher spiritual dynamic that's happening, and we're witnessing unfold over different multiple levels every day. And we've been watching it, and it's accelerating. I think we're at an accelerated pace right now, and it's going to come to a culmination. It's going to come to a head. And this has been through the prophetic works of the different religions, of the Jewish religion, the Christian religion, Islamic religion. They're all, and even in the Hindu, about the end times. And what it comes to, this classic battle over good and evil and return, and the victory of good over evil. And when we come back, I want to ask you about some of the ancient Native American prophecies about the end times, because I know there are some. And I want to talk to you about those and get your thoughts on those and share some of the Native American end time prophecies with all of us when we come back. And, it's, I don't like calling it end time. I like to call it a change time, because all of those prophecies foretell of a new age that comes. But at a
during the break, I'm going to have to smoke my special peace pipe so I can recall those stories.
You got to do it. You only have like 3 minutes. You better light your lighter right now, because we're going up on a break. Get the chanupa out, baby. And start token, because we're going to break right now. Be right back. Don't go away, everyone.
Fire.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Phoenix Rising Radio. Now is the time to lift your mind higher. Now is the time to rise above. I am your host, Phoenix, and welcome to tonight's broadcast.
And welcome back to the second hour of Phoenix Rising Radio here this evening on Truth Frequency Radio Network, where truth is premier. And you can listen to us on all types of formats over at truthfrequencyradio.com, or you can access us by many different modes. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, and we're just talking about everything, but before we went to break, Ney Say was going to share with us Native American prophecies about what some people call the end times, what I want to call the change of times, the change of direction, where that which is high is made low and that which is low is made high, leveling to low. Ney Say, what do you got for us? Did you have a chance to Chalupa and do your thing?
Well, let me quick do a disclaimer. Bourgeois ni Ney Say Indigenicas, Jaganashi Moog, Kevin Indigenicas, or Gawin Minawa, Ney Say Indigenicas Ojibwem, Kevin Indigenicas, Jaganashi Moog, Gi Jagaswa, Bungi, Hagen, Gawin, Cannabis, Asema, Apwagan, Nungum, Inde, Pegishkima Diziwewin. All right, what I basically said is I did a quick...
Let me translate for you. What you basically said to the Native American people who may be listening, you are not smoking cannabis in your chanupa. Is that true?
Thank you. And I didn't know you know the language there. But yeah, basically I just introduced myself, and then I basically said that, you know, as an individual with a pipe, I don't smoke cannabis in my spiritual pipe because that is, you know, that's used for ceremony, and we use kinnikinnick, which is a blend of tobacco and some other herbs, but not cannabis. However, I do believe that any pipe that is filled with cannabis would be considered a peace pipe. But so anyway,
Okay.
As we were discussing a couple weeks ago, last week I was supposed to go to Sundance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that fell through. And it is, and I'm starting not to like that term. It is what it is, but it was what it was. and for what reason, you know, who am I to know? At some point I'll get there because I really want to pierce. And I was hoping to go there because I have questions, and sometimes my elders get a little bit upset with me because I supposedly ask questions, sometimes not at the right time, you know, where it should be a little bit more discreet. But then I'm always pondering, when will I get a discreet moment with some of these elders? And I do believe that we need to start sharing our teachings with everybody, because these teachings would detrimentally help us all, especially as time has progressed and the audience has heard me describe the powwow grounds, and how the powwow grounds and a lot of our ceremonial grounds are basically sundials, and that by witnessing and paying attention to the shadows and how they lie tells us about the great cycles between Mother Earth and Father Sky and the sun and the moon and all the other stars. You know, Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, the Big Bear and the Little Bear. You know, those were Native American constellations. The Big Bear and the Little Bear that we somehow, you know, gravitated to use now. And maybe it's just because the North American continent that the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper is more prevalent in the sky, but because of all of these positionings that are occurring, the Native Americans, their biggest teaching symbol is the circle, and the circle can be interpreted as a cycle or a phase of period or a length of time, whether we call it the great epoch or the procession of the ages or the monthly calendar. Most Native American tribes, they talk about the 13 moon system or the 13 moon calendar of the year. And all of a sudden, sometimes there's a crazy year when there's 14 full moons and 14 new moons. Someone take the time and count how many full moons and new moons we're having this year. Also, when this galactic alignment occurs on the 21st of August, we are going to have a bunch of planets that are going to come in an alignment. And just like when you fine tune a radio, or you make your frequency in alignment, or you fine tune your frequency, it is basically an alarm going off. And unfortunately, we are constantly hitting the snooze button instead of paying attention or taking the time to look at these signs, not only in the heavens, but with what's happening with Mother Earth, climate change, And so one of the prophecies that we have is called and I mean no disrespect to anyone that is listening by sharing these prophecies. I share them with the hopes that they will help someone. And so forgive me if I'm sharing it out of time or out of regular ceremony. But we call it the seventh fire prophecy. Some people call it the seventh into the eighth fire prophecy, which is to me, I call it semantics, but unfortunately, when we think about a fire, we think about a campfire. Well, another fire, as you guys have heard me say before, is the sun. The heavenly sun is a fire. And in the nighttime, all of those little pinpoints of light are multitudes of campfires. And that's one of the teachings of the Anishinaabe people, that when you look up into the heavens and you see all of those little points of lights, that's a recognition of all our generations of the past, that they're all at their own little campfires, because we need our little campfires. We need our little light to get us through the darkness.
Oh, man. Dude, I just had a vision that the night sky was like a mirror, and what it was showing was all of our elders all over the world in all their camps with all their fires going.
Right, absolutely. And then they say, well, look at this group of little campfires. This is the group of the 7 sisters, or this is the group of the 4 chiefs, for a poor word of choice, but for the 4 leaders. This is the constellation of where we came from in the eastern sky, if you can find the circle. But also when they talk about the 7th fire coming around. So when we see a meteorite or a comet like Hale-Bopp, we see all of a sudden this new fire in the sky. And this new fire in the sky comes across our horizon, or it comes across the night sky, and it's a light, or whether when the eclipse occurs, and all of a sudden, because it's darkening a part of the sky, all of a sudden we're able to see another celestial object that is lit up in another spectrum. Nibiru, Wormwood, the Red Dragon, the Blue Kachina, multitudes of other Planet X, yada, 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 And this reoccurrence of the cycle is just the way it is, and that is the whole theory of order and chaos. When you look at the cycles on the microcosm or the macrocosm within our atoms, we have our own little Oort cloud. We have our own little Van Allen radiation belt. When you look at the nucleus and the protons and the electrons and these little particles doing their electromagnetic dance around each other, where they're making, polarities of this is positive or that is negative, and all of these lessons can be scrutinized at whatever perspective you choose to look at it. So in the microcosm, we have all of this disease, we have all of this possession, we have all of these spirits that are entering us, whether they be bacterium, or they be fungus, or they be viruses, or they're preservatives or additives. They're stuff that are compromising our body and giving us dis-ease. And what are we doing to exercise those demons from within us? And on the macrocosm, here in our so-called solar system, where we have this cycle of order happening, but then all of a sudden chaos happens, where the celestial body that allegedly is on a perpendicular orbit comparatively to the other planets is going to have an effect when it comes through the paths of all of these other heavenly bodies. And then we look at the historical of the battle of the gods in the heavens, and we find out that a lot of the gods' names correlated with the planets. And then we go back further in the Anunnaki, when they talk about Enlil and Enki and all of them, and how they correlate with the planets, and how Saturn does a certain thing every now and then, and Venus does a certain pattern every now and then. And when all of these patterns correlate and we notice them, next thing you know, the alarm is going off. And do we roll over, stare at the clock, and say, forget it, as we look at that circle within the square and we hit the snooze button?
Yeah. Really good stuff. And all good points. Where do we go from here? How do I even comment on all of that? There's been so much talk about Nibiru, the 12th planet, Hercobulus, and there's evidence in all the ancient writings and scriptures that this does happen. And you're talking about, this 21st day. There's a lot, and the eclipse that's coming up, a huge, huge thing. There's been a lot of speculation that perhaps it could initiate some massive tectonic activity. And we are in a period right now, it's called the 206-year cycle. And every time we have entered the 206-year cycle, it's a downward cycle on the sun, where the sun's activity, it's a minimum, a solar minimum, but it's a super minimum, if you will, that happens every 206 years. There has never been a time, Ney Say, that the United States in recorded history has not experienced a New Madrid fault earthquake. Every 206 years.
Well, I mean, and even to go beyond that, if you suspend the belief of whether there's a flat earth or a round earth or whatever, and if you think of a billiard table and you take the billiard balls and you line them up in a line, and some of them may be 2 inches apart, some of them may be 5 inches, some 10 or whatever. Now imagine all of those balls having an electromagnetic field to them, where some of them are positive on one side and one of them are negative on the other side. When all of those planets align up in that line, and then all of a sudden on the far right is little Earth by itself, what kind of magnetic pole is that going to have on the Earth and the other planets? So it's simple logic, because and I'll be the first one to say that gravity is a lie in that it is not something, it is a description of an action. Because gravity is just the whole thing of when you drop something, it goes towards the center of the earth.
True.
That's all it's not describing the even grander theory of the electromagnetic repulsion and attraction that's occurring. So as above, so below, with our center core where it's spinning and it's causing an electromagnetic field, and then the next layer of molten lava is causing its own electromagnetic field, and then the next layer is causing its own. And every single layer is causing one electromagnetic layer to the next one. If you think of the sphere and the center point of the sphere, and you go out further and further from the center, and then we get to the crust of our Earth, and we get to our atmosphere. And in our atmosphere, from the bottom of the atmosphere to the ground, all the way up to the troposphere, the stratosphere, the Van Allen radiation belt, all of those have their own electromagnetic continuity to them. And we talk about the starts with an R now. The Earth is the Schumann. Oh, I just lost it. The
Schumann resonance.
Yes, thank you, sir. That they have been able to tune into that, and they have been able to see how it has been shifting. And if you've been following any of Greg Braden, and we've talked about him, I think on the last show, he was talking in his incredible Awakening to 0 Point lectures, where they talk about this residency. When you go to a piano and you look at a piano, and this is something that I just learned, and it's just popping my noodle, where we talk about mathematics and all of these things that are occurring with each other. In an octave, you have 13 keys, and they're divided by 8 white keys and 5 black keys. And then those black keys are divided into 2 keys that are right by each other, and then 3 keys that are right by each other. Are we on the same page right now, Phoenix?
That's correct. That's all
okay.
correct.
So then those 2 keys, 1 key plus 1 key equals 2. The first 2 black keys. 2 black keys plus 1 key equals 3 black keys to the next. 3 black keys plus 2 black keys equal all of the black keys, which is 5. 5 black keys plus 3 black keys equal all of the white keys, which is 8. 8 white keys plus the 5 black keys go to the whole octave of 13 keys. What did I just describe there, Phoenix?
That was basically the Fibonacci sequence.
Thank you. Correct. Yeah. And so this is the beauty of mathematics. From that frequency of when you pluck a chord and then you divide it in half and you pluck it again, you got an octave higher. You divide it again and you pluck it and you got a third higher. And all of those different octaves resonate at a frequency. And when that frequency is fine-tuned and in alignment, and you have that frequency vibrate on a plate of sand, it creates a beautiful structure. And then you jump up to the next octave, and then it tunes into another beautiful structure. And so we have these fine-tunings within ourselves to where we just fine-tune ourselves. We become in alignment. And unfortunately, the powers that shouldn't be, by that circle within the square, your clock, they have us stuck to that prison of time, where on the grand scale of Mother Earth and Father Sky, they have their own cycle of time that we are not connected to. And if we would connect to that, if we would synchronize then that's when we become more fine-tuned. Because as you talk about these cycles that are occurring, one thing where I'm blessed with my daughter's birthday on July 25th, which is the Mayans' Day Out of Time. I invite you all to research the Mayans' Day Out of Time and look at what's so special about this year's Day Out of Time.
Okay, so when you're saying July 25th is the Mayans' Day Out of Time, I'm familiar with the Day Out of Time in past cycles and past calendars. What specifically are you talking about? And also, specifically, is this with the Mayan calendar and not the Gregorian?
Well, this is where the beauty of it is, where when I tell you all, and I hope some of you took my advice, and every morning that you're saying what time is the sunset and what time is the sunrise, and you're keeping track of it, because Siri is just lying through its teeth about giving you the proper times, and I invite people to start writing it down, because common sense. When the day, right now the days are getting shorter. And when the days get shorter, they should get almost perfectly equal shorter by the sunrise and the sunset. It shouldn't be like the sunset is like 10 minutes earlier and the sunrise is 1 minute earlier or 1 minute later. They should be equally from both sides getting smaller. And they're not. And Siri is not giving you the right answer. But the day out of time, if you get critical with it, is a correlation. I can't remember if it was the new moon or the full moon, or if it was the halfway point between the two. Because according to the Mayans, the day out of time was a no day. It wasn't counted as in the calendar. It was just a day, and I'm totally gapping even deeper on it and stuff like that. But it does correlate with the heavens, because the Mayans were incredible astronomers. They kept track of the stars so well that we are using most of their calendars to predict our eclipses and our celestial events.
Oh yeah, they had some wild things going on. There's some amazing things in South America that are being hidden and covered up, and there's a lot of evidence that your Native American tribes, Native Americans in the U.S., had a vital trading network and intellectual network with all of the Mayan technologies and all of this, all the way up and down through the peninsula and up. The fascinating. The mathematics that they had were incredible. They had astronomy and places, and I truly believe they possibly had advanced optics on top of some of those pyramids also. They didn't do rudimentary. They talk about the astronomy of the ancient peoples, the Maya, the Inca, and one's left to believe it was all naked eye. I do not believe that was the case. I believe they had instruments. I believe that they had instruments to do advanced and deep space study.
Oh, I think I agree with you too, where I think that they did have the ability for polishing like quartz and white quartz and being able to cut it. And I mean, even like if you look at the crystal skulls, and then if you look at some of the readings about the Chinese and their telescopes, where their telescopes were basically an 8-foot tube, and they had individuals that rarely went out in the day. And so they literally were able to see in the dark. And these individuals would go up on top of the ziggurats, and then they would have these 8-foot tubes that were put on, precise stands, that wouldn't shift, and it would precisely shift according to, minutes and arcs and angles and all of that. So they would track the night skies. And they would have groups of people that would do this. They would look through the tube, and then they would take little dots on a piece of paper and either on an animal hide or on a flat clay, and they wrote these celestial events down.
All right. We're rolling up on a break here. Everyone, don't go away. We'll be right back after this break.
Pick your brains up off the floor.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children, watch that sound. Everybody look what's going down.
Alrighty, welcome back to our last segment here this evening on Phoenix Rising Radio. It's gone so fast. We're talking about so many things with Ney Say. And, there's all kinds of news out there. There's all kinds of drama out there. But I'm telling you what, it's theatrics. We talk about political theatrics. I've talked about this before. That's all it is. Don't get caught up into this. Ney Say, I've told people this before. If you are emotionally triggered, one side or the other. If I say Hillary Clinton's a crook, she should go to prison forever. And that...
What?
Or I say, Donald Trump's the greatest guy ever.
How dare you?
Or I say, Donald Trump should go to jail. He's a Russian collaborator.
I agree.
You agree. And then set you off. Whatever. You're being played because it's theatrics. These are theatrics that are being put forward by the few who control the many. And if you don't think Donald Trump is part of the few that control the many, you better check your facts. When I say check your facts, historically go back and look. He's a multi-billionaire. He's been part of the elite for decades. He's in
for
there.
His life, his lifetime. His father was part of it.
Yeah, you can't describe a player more than Donald Trump. He was the billionaire, playboy builder who restored New York, and I mean, the guy had it. He still has it. He's still got the thing going on. I had one friend say, you know what? He goes, I wonder if his wife, Milena, who's an absolutely gorgeous woman, the woman's stunning, if she wasn't all pre-planned, because my friend says, the guy's like a genius. He's a genius, and he thought, I'm going to be president, and who's the perfect wife I need? Well, let's get someone who's from a different nation. She's an immigrant, and she speaks multiple languages. She's beautiful, and all of this. She can, she can do public speaking, and that's Milena. I mean, she can do this. I mean, she speaks 5 languages. They were just at the G20 meeting. She could speak fluent Russian, fluent German, all these other different languages. I mean, she's such an asset to a president and to the nation. So, but he was saying, was it intentional?
I wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't Trump's handler.
Yeah, dude, I don't think he's being handled. I
don't know. I don't know.
No, I don't think he's being handled at all. And I really don't think he's being played by the Russians. Personally. You
don't think he saw that Bill Hicks third angle of the Kennedy assassination?
He may have. And that's why he kind of went like off the rails whenever he's like, I'm going to drain swamp, I'm going to do all this. And whoa, he may have. Who knows? But, he had to go into this knowing what he was doing, because what I always ask my listeners to do is like, look at the facts, be observant, be a critical thinker. And when you see an individual, a corporation, a government do something that doesn't make sense, pay attention. And I'm telling you right now, you have a multi-billionaire who had everything that he wanted. Normally what happens is you have people come into the presidency. Some of them, they do it for, reasons that are possibly, patriotic, but many of them do it and they get into politics for money and influence and power. That he did not need to go into politics for money, influence, and power because number one, he had it all. I mean, Air Force One compared to his jet is like substandard.
Downsizing.
Oh, okay. I guess I can fly on this. I mean, the White House, what do you think? His wife didn't want to move in the White House. She's like, really? You want me to live here? Compared to Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago. These guys had it all. And he's not taking a salary right now or $1 or donate. I don't know what it is. But he didn't need to do this. And he didn't take any political donations, all of that. So he's not doing it for the money. So the guy's not doing it for money. He's doing it for another reason. And I'm telling you, he's not doing it because the Russians.
You say the P word?
The P word. You can say
power. Power, not the cat P word. Jeez.
What?
Well, that might be a side bonus. But
a side bonus.
Can I digress?
Can you? You always do. So go ahead.
We were talking earlier about getting your emotions worked up, and I share this with my children, and I share this with friends. When I discuss emotions and dealing with emotions, I think of driving a car, and I don't know if I've shared this with the audience before, but when you're driving a car and you're driving your car with all your emotions in the back seat, and when you want an emotion, or if you let an emotion get involved with what you're doing with, wouldn't you rather let that emotion come up into the front seat as the passenger than letting that emotion drive your car? Because then when you let someone else drive your car, you have no idea where it's going to go. And so if you think of it that way, where, invite the emotion up into the front seat, acknowledge that it's there, and say, okay, you can navigate, but I refuse to let you have the wheel.
I'm not. I don't agree with you. I think your emotions, you should let them up before they drive. They should have a driving test, and I think that driving test should involve logic, because
I'll give you that. Yes.
Yeah, our emotions. Sometimes when we react emotionally or let our emotions guide us, we do weird things like let refugees overrun our countries. Oh, you know what? Let me say this on the air, and let me share this with you. This whole thing, I was talking earlier about things that don't make sense. One of the things that didn't make sense, everyone was like, why is Germany, why is France, why are all these countries allowing millions of people overrun their nation and totally destroy it? It doesn't make sense. Even the people of these countries initially, the good-hearted ones, like, oh, this is a good thing, welcome them in. Then they're like, oh my God, they're like being raped and chased around. And they wondered why would nations destroy themselves? There was a reason for it. Okay, and I'm going to explain that to everybody. Remember when Donald Trump pulled out of the Paris Agreement and everybody in the entire world freaked out? They lost it. Like, this guy is this crazy, blah, blah, blah. By the way, Turkey has pulled out today, just so you know, because the U.S. pulled out. Let me tell you why the U.S. pulled out and why the nations of the world are freaking out and why they did that unexplainable thing of the refugees. They were told by Obama, who agreed to the Paris Accord, that this was the plan. They were going to allow all of these people to come in, and then under the Paris Climate Accord, they were going to decree and declare that all of these refugees in Europe were climate refugees. And you've heard that before. They started seeding the media with climate refugees, global warming. These are climate refugees. They were going to tag all these people in Germany and France and all these other countries as climate refugees. Therefore, the countries, Germany, France, etc., would be able to receive money from the Paris Climate Accord, primarily from the United States, you, me, and everybody who pays taxes, and all of our this billions and trillions of dollars of a commitment that the U.S. would have had to done. Every single one of these refugees, being a climate refugee, would be assigned a monetary value. Let's say it's $1 million, because they're climate refugees and it's a climate problem. That nation would have to deal with them, and so that nation, say it's Germany, for every individual they would get, say, like $1 million for, to provide for housing, health, education, whatever, to deal with it, because it was a climate problem. So that's why they opened their borders and they flooded the entire countries right before the election with millions of people that they can't pay for, because they all thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. They all thought Hillary Clinton was going to win and the Climate Paris Accord was going to go through, and they would then be able to get billions of dollars from the climate the Paris Accord, the Climate Accord, which would be primarily paid by the United States. It was a redistribution of wealth scheme. It was like, how do we redistribute the wealth of the world? And it was like, oh, you bring all the people from the poor countries into Europe, and then you force the wealthy countries to take all of their wealth and give it to them. That was the scheme. And when Donald Trump said, nah, we're not going to do that, that's why they all freaked out, dude. It has nothing to do with the climate. It has to do with the redistribution of wealth. And he said, you know what? We're not going to do this way. There's a different way to do this.
If you think about the rhetoric about the whole carbon taxing, okay, where they're talking about wanting to give us a carbon tax because we're supposedly polluting as individuals. And so they have an algorithm that says from the moment this child is born in America to his death, he's potentially going to create this much of a carbon footprint. Therefore, he's contributing to the degradation of Mother Earth. Therefore, he should be taxed because of his waste of carbon. And so it's almost like an insurance policy for us to let all of these other people come into our country, where we're like, look, world, we're going to worsen our world by letting them in our country. So we want you guys to pay us for letting them into our country so we can make up for their carbon footprint. Yeah, that totally makes sense. But my only argument is, yeah, the Native Americans were talking about that same complaint in 1492 with all these refugees.
Oh, yeah. Well, and look what happened. Yeah, look what happened. Look what the end result. I mean, seriously. Dude,
deforestation.
Deforestation. Yeah, it was said that before the Europeans came to North America, that a squirrel could literally get on a tree branch in Boston and get off of a tree branch in California and never touch the ground, going from tree to tree, if it took the right path. And that's true. That's very true. Deforestation was a big thing. Just, raping of the assets. And yeah, we know what happened. But you know what? What we have to remember here, I think the takeaway from all this, what we're talking about this evening, we're talking about fairs and the common denominator, communities, etc. This is a common thing amongst all people. And, Ney Say talks a lot about Native American things. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm European, I'm Spanish, I'm, whatever. That doesn't really apply to me. It does. Because what he's talking about is the basic structure of humanity pre-civilization. And if you can hear my voice right now, you have an elder somewhere long ago who sat around a campfire. And that elder long ago had the same basic beliefs that Ney Say talks about with the Native American people. If you think that you are, man, I'm not connected with the Native Americans anyway, you may not be. You may not be, but I will guarantee you all peoples are connected. And at one time, all peoples, how you view the Native Americans, however you may do it in your mind, you think or thought they lived, your ancestors lived the same way. And we all have an ancient heritage. All of us, it's in your DNA. It's something in your soul. And that's why people love to sit around a fire. I don't care who you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. There's something that will, some people, not for long, because it's like, oh, bugs, and then they want to go in. But there's something initially, there's a connection in there. Like, I know this in my heart. Everyone experiences this.
Well, and I hope I definitely don't sound like a doom and gloomer, because, when it comes down to the end of it all, I am content that when the creator or whatever it is calls me and says, okay, you need to release this physical form, in my head right now, I'm saying I'm okay with this. I'm ready for this. I would rather it not occur, but I know that this is the cycle of life. And I definitely don't have the trillions of dollars to have my consciousness uploaded into a computer and then downloaded into my own clone. And so I have to be content with, I don't have that kind of money like the elites do. Or I refuse to eat a baby every morning like the Queen does. Speculation there, of course. But my ancestors...
DNA, she does, in a way.
Right?
Yep.
But my ancestors in North America, for, the claims are 120,000 years. And so suspension of belief that they were here for that long of period of time. So for that length of time, they figured out through trial and error what is the best harmonious way to live on the North American continent. And they figured it out. However, when the colonists came over, they were like, are you guys crazy? Do you not understand the potential you have here? And they did understand their potential. They're like, if we live in accordance to our surroundings, then we know that our children will have a decent life. It may be a little bit rough, it may be a little hard, but when you have a community, how much easier is it to get something accomplished when you have a group of people doing it?
I actually think now, today, is rougher and harder than it was then. And people are like, what? We have air conditioning, we have this, we have that. No, I'm telling you, if you break it all down, if you would go to the basic core of what makes you happy, what gives you pleasure, what makes you smile, what lights your fire, what is it that lights you up, what is it that makes you shine, what is that in your heart that makes you glow? Joy and peace and love. And that's the thing that all human beings seek. And I will guarantee you there was more joy and peace and love and harmonious, energetic going on centuries ago, and with our ancestors, and with the type of living that Ney Say is talking about. And this is so true. Europeans came and it's like, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. And, this could have all been handled differently. But you know what? I think this is a progression and it takes time. There was such a difference, man. There was such a difference of Native American existence and European self visions of wisdom, if you want to say, self-appointed grandeur of being gods themselves. Because, the intellectual mind always thinks you have attained it all, you've figured it all out. And I think there's something going on here. I think there's a clash of the old and the new. and it's all going to equal out. There's going to be a leveling process, and I think the melding of the beauty, the truth, and the healthy existence. When I say healthy, I'm talking about physical, mental, and spiritual existence that our ancient ancestors had with some of the knowledge, because some of the knowledge that we have now isn't really knowledge, it's foolishness. I think it's all going to kind of blend together somehow, dude. I think we're going to come to some type of amalgamated thing, again, I don't think through an easy transition. I think there's going to be a disruptiveness. I call it the leveling that's going to happen. And I think something new is going to come out. It's going to be kind of an alternate Native American or ancient way of doing things with some modern knowledge of and technology, and it's going to kind of blend together. You see what I'm saying? I can't really verbalize what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. And it goes with the way that cycles go, with the whole chaos and order. At a certain period, it seems like everything is in order, but then something occurs that causes the chaos. Whether it be the ocean crashing against the rocks, and then all of a sudden it's the calm sea. There's always that change that is occurring, that oscillation from one extreme to the other, and then there's a period of balance. So when we can find that balance within ourselves and not get caught up in that oscillation of letting the emotions, totally dictate us where we're not in our right frame of mind, and finding that balance, mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally, so our wheel can roll in a proper, smooth, fashion. And I'm not saying we need to go back to bow and arrows. We need to go back to wigwams and stuff like that. But we need to really try to grasp the concept of the teachings of the indigenous people, of how to think more in a community and not get caught up in the oneness, and recognizing the oneness and the uniqueness, or the miracle, like I was saying, before, because we're all in it together.
Hey, man, you ever talk to William Whitecrow?
Yes, and we actually probably should have him on the show sometime, because he is a delight to share knowledge with.
He's been on the program before, and we've had some pretty interesting conversations. I think maybe we should contact William and have him on, because I don't know. I just think it would be valuable for everyone at this time. I know it'd be valuable for me to have you and William together talking about things. And I don't know, dude, I think something's happening here. I can feel it. Something is about to happen. And I think this type of conversation and this type of guidance and thought-provoking conversation needs to be put out for our listeners as an asset and as a mode of hope, because there's a lot of hope in this. What do you think, man?
Well, I absolutely agree. And I've said this before, that I think in the minimalist, in the thought of prepare for the worst and hope for the best, we should at least have ourselves a get up and go bag, because even the government's website says that you should have 6 months of medication on hand. And that, to me, I think it was only 3 months, like 5 years ago. Or not three. Yeah, I think it was only 3 months before that they were saying that you should be prepared for in the event of some cataclysmic event, or some power outage, or winter storm, or tornado, or earthquake, or, whatever. They're called accidents for a reason, but if you prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and minimally have a bug out bag, because if there's one thing that you should look at when you go to the store next time, I don't know if you remember when there was a time when your shelves were stacked from the front of the shelf and deep 12 cans. But now when you go to the stores, you're lucky if you'll find 3 or 4 cans deep on your shelves. And if that's the truth, then that means when the proverbial fan gets hit, those stores will be empty within hours.
Yes, well, that's true. We've talked about that. The fragility of our, just on time society that we live in. You know what? Contact William Whitecrow, if you would, Ney Say, and see if he has the time, and he would do that because it'd be wonderful. He's been, like I said, he's been a guest on the show maybe once, maybe twice, and we were actually, he proposed a project. We talked about a project a couple of years ago, but I had to stop that because there were other things going on at the time. But I think maybe William Whitecrow needs to come back. And
he does have his own show now too on Sundays. I just remember that on Sundays Central. I think it's either 5 to 7 or 4 to 6, right after Chris Everett's show, and then it's Sean with Awaken Liberty, is it?
Yeah.
And then after Awaken Liberty, I think it's William Whitecrow's show. So definitely check them out. Everybody has something to share. It's whether or not we have the patience to listen and hear what they have to share, and it's like that adage, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
True. Very true. Broken clock or one that's not wound, which means one that's asleep. Anyway, thanks, man, for coming on this evening, and I'm glad you had a good time at the fair and everything. And we've got like a minute rolling out here, but to everyone who was hoping you'd hear like the latest conspiracy news or something, we didn't get to it tonight. Some nights we get to it. Some nights we talk about the hot topics of the day, what's happening, and, to get everybody fired up. But you know what? You can hear that anywhere. You can hear that anywhere. Tune into any channel, go into any internet feed. You can find that. But, yeah. Anyway, thanks, bro.
Thank you, Phoenix, as always. And thank you, Chris and Cherie and TFR. And hello, chat room.
Oh, yeah.
And Toodles, chat room.
You got it. Toodles. Man, where do you get that Toodles from?
I want a campaign. If somebody could make me up shirts that say, bring back Toodles.
Bring back Toodles. Bring back Toodles.
And man. Rubber Rabbit.
Rubber Rabbit, Rubber Rabbit, Rubber Rabbit. We're out of here. I'll be back on Thursday with Bob Gilpatrick of Boomers Forever Young. Be sure and tune in. Thank you for listening. And the big thing right now, find someone you love and tell them that you love them. So important, because we never know, man. We never know. See you on